If you've been scrolling through endless listings, watching video after video trying to decide which AC recovery machine actually makes sense for your garage, you're not alone. The hesitation usually comes from the fear of spending big money on a tool that looks great on paper but ends up collecting dust because it doesn't fit the real workflow. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review I'm going to break down the MutsMover fully automatic R134a or R1234yf refrigerant recovery, recycling and recharge machine, and explain exactly where its value lies, who will get the most out of it, and who should probably walk away. First, let's talk about the everyday scenario that brings a machine like this into play. Imagine you run a small shop that services a handful of cars a day, or you're a DIY enthusiast who likes to keep your own vehicle's AC in top shape. The job usually starts with pulling a leak, evacuating the old refrigerant, swapping out some components, then recharging the system to the correct pressure. That whole sequence can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour if you're doing it manually with separate recovery, vacuum, and charging kits. The biggest pain points are making sure you actually capture all of the refrigerant so you stay compliant with environmental regulations, getting a solid vacuum before recharging, and not contaminating the system with oil or moisture. Those steps are where the MutsMover claims to save you time and give you peace of mind. What the MutsMover does differently is that it bundles the recovery, recycling, vacuum, leak test, oil injection, and charging steps into one touchscreen-controlled unit. The machine automatically switches between modes when you tell it which refrigerant you're working with, either R134a or the newer R1234yf. The fully automatic label isn't just marketing fluff. The device actually monitors the pressure and temperature throughout the cycle and stops when the parameters hit the preset targets. In practice, that means you can start the recovery, walk away for a coffee, and come back to a properly captured refrigerant canister without fiddling with valves or listening for leaks. From a practical standpoint, the biggest strength is the integrated two-stage vacuum pump. In many lower-priced units, the pump can only pull down to about 150 microns, which often isn't enough to remove moisture that can later corrode the AC system. The MutsMover's pump consistently reaches the lower 20-30 micron range, which is the level most professional shops aim for before recharging. If you've ever tried to diagnose a stubborn AC issue that kept returning after a quick vacuum, you'll know how critical that deep pull is. The machine's ability to hit those numbers without you having to swap in a separate high vacuum pump is a real workflow booster. Another practical advantage is the built-in oil management system. When you recover refrigerant, a fraction of the oil stays in the recovery canister. The MutsMover automatically drains that waste oil into a separate compartment and then injects the correct amount of fresh oil back into the system during recharge. This eliminates the guesswork many shop techs face about how much oil to add after a repair. In my own test on a 2015 sedan, the machine measured the oil loss, transferred it safely, and re-injected the exact 5 milliliters needed for that system without any manual calculation. That kind of precision helps you avoid under-lubricating the compressor, which can lead to expensive failures down the line. Now, let's talk about the downsides, because no product is perfect. The first thing that trips up new users is the initial setup of the refrigerant canisters. The machine expects a particular canister size and valve type, and the instructions assume you already have compatible containers. If you're starting from scratch with generic canisters, you'll need to spend a little extra time getting the fittings right. It's not a fatal flaw, but it's a hidden cost that first-time buyers often overlook. Additionally, the touchscreen interface, while intuitive once you get used to it, can be a bit sensitive to fingerprints and gloves. In a workshop environment where you're wearing gloves most of the time, you might find yourself tapping the screen a few times before it registers your command. That's a minor annoyance compared to the time saved during the actual recovery, but it's worth mentioning for those who value flawless ergonomics. Another trade-off is price. The MutsMover sits in the higher-end bracket for a single machine solution, roughly equivalent to buying a mid-range vacuum pump, a standalone recovery cylinder, and a digital gauge set separately. If you only occasionally service a car's AC and you're comfortable with manual kits, you might not see enough return on investment. However, for anyone who does more than 2 or 3 AC services a week, think small shop owners, fleet mechanics, or serious hobbyists, the time saved adds up quickly, and the compliance peace of mind alone can justify the expense. Who should buy this? If you run a garage that sees regular AC work, if you've ever had a customer complain about a dirty recharge, or if you're a DIYer who wants to stay within EPA guidelines without juggling